Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back, and today we're going to be taking a look at a stock iOS app. Now, I feel like a lot of people don't look into stock apps because most people know how they work. They've either used them and don't really like them, or they continue to use them. Now, I do think it's interesting to have a look at them every once in a while though, because certain things like Apple Music and Apple News, and even like email and calendar, are direct competitors with things like Exchange and Flipboard and Spotify and all sorts of things. So in this video we're going to be taking a look at Apple Music, which should be a little interesting because they've redesigned it for iOS 10. So before we get into it, I would like to mention there are 3D touch toggles, obviously, because it's a stock app. Now you can get to search, beats one, and then this is kind of a recent widget here. You can get to that obviously in your widget panel over here. You can see a bit more of it if you hit show more. Now, I'm still not entirely sure how this works. If it was like a list of the most recent things you've played, I think it would be really useful, but instead it seems to pick and choose what it wants to put on there, and I'm still not entirely sure how it works. It seems to be somewhat recent stuff that you've added, but then again, other things have come up that I just played, and it decided to add to it, so I'm not really sure how that works. Hopefully they get that worked out. It'd be nice if you could customize what it shows, like the order of which stuff comes up on it. But as of right now, it doesn't seem horribly useful. If we launch in here, you can see you have 5 main tabs across the bottom of the screen. You have Library, you have For You, you have Browse, Radio, and Search. Now, they have removed Connect, or the Connect tab at least, at the bottom, and added a dedicated search tab. Now, we'll get to that in just a second, how that all works out. But as you can see, you have plenty of different buttons up at the top here. You have things for playlists, albums, artists, songs, downloaded music, home sharing, and then your recently added. So you can see all the things you've recently added here. You can click on those and it'll open up the album and you can pick the songs that you want off of it. Now up at the top here, you can edit what shows up here. The only thing you can't get rid of is the home sharing thing, which I kind of wish you can, because I don't really use that. But everything else is customizable here, and you can move them around to see what order you want them in. Now if we click on one of them, you'll be able to see what's inside of them, and we'll go through those one by one here. So in playlist, it's fairly simple. You just get a list of all of your playlists, obviously, and there is new album art for playlists made by Apple Music or made by other creators. They'll just kind of show a tilted angle that looks kind of nice, but once you've made yourself, you will see there are just the 4 album covers, the first 4 like it was before. Albums here, obviously it'll just basically show you alphabetized order of the albums. It is nice though that you get fairly big album art, because I do think seeing the album art is quite useful. Artists, again, alphabetized list. Now, songs is the one I use most. Now, you do have your scrubber on the side, just as always, and you can get stuff like that. Now, you see next to it, there is a easy button to add things to offline. So if you hit that, it will download it offline for you. Speaking of which, if we go to downloaded music, you can have a specific tab here for just your downloaded things. Now, this used to be a switch in iOS 9, now it's its own tab, so you can get to things like artists and songs, but this whole area here is only for offline music, as well as the recently added stuff. So that's pretty useful, actually. So then if we go over to For You, you can see this has changed quite a bit since iOS 9. Now at the top here you have what is basically your radio kind of thing. You can click on this and it's a mix of all of these songs that you have on your phone, that you've played, stuff like that. It tries to pick things that you'd be interested in listening to, and you can basically just hit play on that, and in theory it'll find stuff that you like. Now down here you can get to things that you've recently played, which is really convenient there, including playlists, as you can see. And then this is basically like what For You was before. You can get to your playlist for Wednesday or whatever day it is, and it'll just show you recommended playlists. You can go down, you can see heavy rotation, things you play frequently. Again, albums like you could get in Connect before, or For You, sorry. And then artists, spotlight playlists, just more playlists like that, but of specific artists, and then new releases, and then Connect posts. Now, this is basically what the Connect tab was before. They've just put it in For You because no one really uses it, but it is nice to see they didn't just completely remove it, so you wouldn't be able to see any of the content that has been posted before. So if we go over into Browse here, you can get to all sorts of things. Now at the top here, you'll get some nice big tiles, just like iTunes usually has, which is just stuff it wants you to see. Then you can get to new music here, which is basically just new music, hot tracks, stuff like that. Here you can get to curated playlists, which again will just give you more playlists like the For You section did. And then there are videos down here, and that will just show you some new videos, some highlighted videos, stuff like that that they want to show you. Then you can get to genres all the way at the bottom, which just switches the genres that it shows you. And then top charts. Now I'm really glad that the app still has top charts. For some reason I like going through it and looking at this. You can see the first few right here, or you can hit see more and it'll give you the whole 150 right here like that, and you can easily add things to your library or download them if you already have them added. You can see albums, you can see the top videos, top songs on Connect, all sorts of stuff like that. Really, really useful. So then the next tab here is going to be radio. Now, radio is pretty much the same as it's been for a while. The first tile up here will always be Beats 1, which is useful. I really like Beats 1. I don't listen to it a whole lot, but I like having it there. Generally, the music they play is not really my style, but I really like the idea of having a live worldwide radio. I think if they add more stations, so you can pick like a genre that you like, it would become a lot more useful. Right now, there's just the one. But you can scroll over here and you can get to other radios. Now, what these are is basically just like a Pandora style thing like they've had for a while. Now, you can click on View All Beats 1 shows, and that'll show you a bunch of their shows. You can go to All Stations, and that will show you all of the radio stations you can get to in there, all of the different genres you can get to. Now, you can also start stations based on artists, as you can see here. I have Fall Out Boy Radio, so you can do that for any album, song, artist, stuff like that. And then you can see all the recently played radios you have. So you can see I have ones for Beats 1, genres, different styles like chill here, and all sorts of stuff like that. You even get things like NPR and Sports Center that you can listen to, which is really, really cool. You also get on-demand access to certain Beats 1 shows. So if you miss something you wanted to hear on Beats 1, say you didn't hear it live, you can go through and see them. Like this is the Apple Music 100 that they did last year. You can go through and watch all those, or listen to them all on demand. And then the final tab over here is search. Now, search obviously lets you search things. You can see your recent searches, which is new, and you can see trending searches at the bottom here. Now, if we click on this up here, you see you have two tabs to search your library or search Apple Music. Now, if we search for something here, you can click on suggestions. I really love when search has suggestions. And it'll show you top results, it'll show you songs, it will show you albums, it will show you playlists, it'll show you videos, artists, even Connect stuff, and stations. So you pretty much get all of it, and you can toggle this to your library up at the top here. And if I had anything in my library, you'd be able to see that there. So you can easily distinguish what's in your library and what's on Apple Music if you don't pay for Apple Music service. So then the last thing I want to get into is the player down at the bottom, which is one of the things you'll be in the most often. So you can drag this up just like you could before, or you can just tap on it if it's closed and it will launch it right up. Now you can see the album art is pretty small. If you hit play, it will enlarge it a bit like that, and it will shrink when it's paused. Now, some people like that, some people don't. I would prefer it just to be edge to edge like it was in iOS 9, because I like having big album art, but this is a little entertaining, I suppose. Now, if you tap on the name in the middle, you can still get to the album just like you could before. That will launch right up, and you can get to that. You can also tap on the artist's name, and it will bring up their page. Now, these pages are quite detailed, pretty useful. You can get to all of that sort of stuff for them. And you can, of course, add the album. Here you can tap on this. Now, those three dots will be all throughout the app. Now, you can do things like add to library, add to playlist, play later, play next, create station, share album, love, and dislike. Now, the dislike feature, I believe, is new for iOS 10. You always had the love button, which I don't generally use, but they are both options, so in theory, for you will be easily informed on what you like if you actually use those. Now, one thing that I have had a problem with in iOS 10 that I think is just a bug and should be patched in a later version is the play later buttons and play next buttons don't always show up when I'm queuing up music. Now, for a while, the play next button was there every time, and it was the play later button that I had a hard time with. It only showed up if I had like a dozen songs or something up next. Now, even the play next button has stopped showing up a lot of the time, so that's kind of a hassle. You can't queue things up properly. That's why I'm thinking it's kind of a bug, because it doesn't make any sense that there would be like reasons why they wouldn't show up. And it kind of makes you think like how good software is when you don't even think about the fact that buttons can't show up. Like when you pull up Control Center, you expect all these to be here, but in theory they're software. They don't have to be. They're not physical buttons, and you realize that when stuff like that just vanishes when you expect it to be there. So it's kind of weird, kind of a problem. Hopefully they get that fixed in like iOS 10.1 or something, or 10.0.2 or whatever. But I'm gonna just call that a bug. Now, while we're on an album, I can show you this quick. You do get the genre, the year, which is really useful. You can click Shuffle All, and it will just play songs off the album. You can tap here, and if the album has a description, you can read that. You can see, obviously, a list of all the songs. And then you can also get a You Might Like. Now, one thing that I do think is kind of nice is you'll see on the popular songs for an album, you'll get a little star next to them. So whatever the hit songs off that album that they consider were the biggest songs. Now, in a beta version of iOS 10, you actually got something that I thought was much better, and that was like a little bar like an older version of iTunes would do. Maybe iTunes still does it on the PC and Mac, but basically showing you the popularity of a song. So it will give you like a range of 1 to 5 how popular the song was, and I do think that's much more useful. But they decided to go the route of just showing you a star, and that's all you get. So obviously you can still scrub through the song like you always could. One thing that I don't seem to see anymore is the ability to adjust the speed at which you scrub. You used to be able to slide up and down. Ever since like really old versions of iOS you could do that, and that doesn't seem to work anymore for some reason. I don't really know why. But you can obviously get to rewind, fast forward, skip, and back depending on if you hold them or push them. Play, volume slider at the bottom here. This will basically choose your output device. If you tap on that, that's always there. Now, it used to only come up if you had other options. Now, even if the only thing you can put it through is your phone, it will still show up, I guess, just to make the UI look better. You can, of course, tap the 3 buttons, and that'll bring that up just like it did before. And then you can hit plus to save it to your library. Now, you can get to the now playing screen in Control Center still. Over here, it looks completely different, obviously, for iOS 10, but that would be for any music app, pretty much. And the album art will still get larger and smaller, just like before. You can get to all of those settings like that. So obviously, pretty much everything about the lock screen has changed with iOS 10, including the player. Now, they basically just made the controls a bit bigger than it was before, and obviously moved the album art down to make room for that. Now, I don't like the look of it as much as I did before, but as far as functionality is concerned, it is a lot easier to hit the buttons this way. Now, I did mention that they added the ability to download songs much easier, but what they did remove was the ability to add songs by pushing the 3 buttons on the side, because they had to move that to add this. So what you do now is you basically 3D touch on the song. So as you can see, you can do that, you can download it, you can delete from library, add to playlist, add to next, and add to play later. You can also create a station, love, dislike, all that, and of course hit play. Now if you tap on this, it will open up the full album there, just like it would before. Now, jumping back into the player for just a minute, if you scroll down, you will get to your up next. Now, you can still drag things just like you could before, but it's a lot easier to get to by just dragging up. So you can get to that. You can also get to your shuffle settings and the loop settings right here. Now, they did add lyrics in this newest version, which is really cool. So you just basically hit show. Most songs I've seen have them. They're on Apple Music. Obviously, if you download something yourself, it will not show up, but if you do go into iTunes and add lyrics, they will show up here just like it does with Apple Music songs. So again, really nice feature just to have if you feel like looking at lyrics. I happen to like looking at them occasionally. So for me personally, I feel like some things have gotten better from iOS 9 and some things have gotten worse. Overall, I think it's a better upgrade, but there are some things they need to work out. For instance, that widget needs a little more clarification and probably a little more customization. And what I'm assuming is a bug of not being able to add things to up next is indeed a very large problem. Now, the one thing I don't know is how this works on non-3D touch devices. So I'm sure they have a way of getting around some of these things because it does rely on 3D touch. For instance, if you're in 4U and you're looking at albums, you can 3D touch on those just like you could before, and they'll show that kind of stuff instead of showing a preview of the album. So that's really useful for 6S and 7 users. But if you don't have 3D touch, I'm sure there's a way you have to get around that for older devices. But I'm not entirely sure how. But again, overall, I think it is an improvement. There's still a ways to go. I'd probably give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So for me personally, I used to download all of my music from iTunes. I would pay, $1.29 or $1 for songs. I'd never really buy albums, I'd just buy the singles. And I was pretty happy with that, but it did get expensive pretty quickly. So I started just pirating songs, downloading them off YouTube with free YouTube downloaders and stuff, adding them into iTunes, but because I'm kind of a perfectionist, I had to add the proper album art, the titles, all of that stuff in years, genres, to make it look as if I had bought them. So that took a lot of time, and I ended up not getting songs for a while after they came out, or when I wanted to get that, because it took a lot of time to get them. Then last year I got a free, well, it was a 99-cent 3-month trial of Spotify after I had had my 7-day trial. I really love Spotify, I still really enjoy it, but I switched to Apple Music shortly after it came out. I finished my Spotify trial, and then I started this, and I've been paying for it ever since. Now, we pay for a $15 family plan, which basically gives you anyone in your family sharing access to Apple Music, which is great. It's $15, it's $10 for a single user, or $15 for the family plan. So all 4 of us in my family can use it, and it's really a great deal. We split it, and it ends up being fairly cheap compared to Spotify. Now, Spotify has a similar thing. It's $10 and then $5 for additional users, but that still ends up being a lot more for 4 of us than it would be for Apple Music a month. Now, I prefer Apple Music because it's integrated. You can play stuff right through Siri, just asking Siri to play music. You can have her pause stuff just like you could with any other app, but it really just works quite well. And there's an Android app, for those of you wondering. It's a lot different than this one, so don't be thinking it's going to look like this when you download it, but all of the features are generally there. And of course, you can use iTunes to get to a lot of this stuff as well. Pretty much everything you can get to through the iTunes app on your desktop or Mac or all of that. But overall, I do really like Apple Music. Now, the app I still think needs some work, like I said earlier, but as far as the service is concerned, I really enjoy it. It's a lot better than paying for music, and it's a lot easier than downloading music. So I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a streaming service. So thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing, as I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. I post new videos every single Sunday, so I definitely like to see you back next week. But until then,